Hey, can you give me some water? We're live. I want to make sure that you can't see up my nose with this thing. Here we go. All right. Hopefully we get a few people jumping on this thing because I've got something really, really important to talk about. I got a lot of people that are reaching out to me and asking me how I stay motivated, asking me how do I stay inspired on a daily basis? What techniques have I used to, let me get a drink here real quick. There's the first one, stay hydrated, okay? No, but what techniques do I use to stay motivated, to stay inspired, to keep going, to push through in those moments when everything seems bleak? And so I'm going to marry this with something that I said a couple days ago where I shared with a few people, you may have seen this, you may not have, that I don't talk enough about my journey. I don't talk enough about the trials and tribulations that it took to get to this point in my life, to become successful. Of course, I've written a book called Patchwork Junkie. It talks about my drug addiction. It talks about my prison sentence. I put posts out all the time about hope and people not giving up. But what I want to start doing is I want to start talking about the areas where I was hopeless, the areas where, hey, Sarah, how are you, honey? Where I needed to come up with techniques that would help me push through. And in those times when I was in prison where I felt like I was forgotten, I was certainly alone, and I was submerged in a world where I wasn't aligned with the people that were around me. I wasn't around people that cared about self-improvement, that cared about fixing themselves. They were all victims of their own circumstance, and it just wasn't that uplifting to be in. And of course, most of the people that knew me as I was growing up weren't in my corner at the time. They didn't know where I was, and I literally felt like I was alone. And so I got to a point to where I thought, you know what? If I'm going to rise above this, I need to pick all the people who I owe it to make sure that I am the man that I was raised to be when I walk out of prison, that I am successful, that I don't go down a path where I could be lost forever and become a permanent convict or become a better criminal or become something that was completely different than what my destiny was supposed to be. And I thought seriously about all the coaches, about my parents, about my friends, my teachers, all the people that put emotion and time and their heart and their belief in me. And they thought to just take a moment or many moments and say, hey, here's a guy that can be somebody. Here's a guy that needs to see that we believe in him and we see a future for him. Those people needed to be paid back. And even though a lot of those people thought that it was bleak and that I wasn't going to be able to climb out of this and that it may have been over for me or didn't even know where I was, it didn't matter. Because at one time they believed in me and I needed to get it in my mind, get it in my heart that I owed it to people to become successful. I owed it to people to rise above my circumstance. I owed it to people to make sure that the conversations that I was having inside prison weren't about continuing to be a criminal, weren't about the negativity that seems to circulate in those conversations. Now, I carried this on into growing startup companies when I was in the throes of 16-hour days and when it seemed like I could never keep up. Hey, Julie, how you doing? It seemed like I could never keep up with my emails. I could never keep up with the responsibilities. And oh, by the way, nobody else was as committed as I was to growing this company. And I couldn't find the energy. I couldn't find the chutzpah to keep moving forward. I literally used that tactic. I literally thought about the people who I owed it to become successful. Some of them were nameless, faceless people. Some of them were drug addicts that I'd never met, but they needed to see somebody do it. They needed to see somebody that could not only get out of prison and stay out of prison, could not only get sober and stay sober, but could thrive in every area of their life. I owed it to people like Julie Yates. I owed it to people that were in Higginsville, that grew up in my small little community. I owed it to all of them to not just get by. I needed to be the person that they knew I could be. And I will tell you that that is one of the most powerful motivators that I could have ever come up with. And I use that amongst a lot of other things that I'm going to talk about in the next couple of days. But get to a point in your life where you visualize the people who believed in you, who have invested in you, who have told you that you can be somebody, and get it in your head that you now have a responsibility. You have a duty, a sacred duty to become successful, to do more, to achieve the things that you're trying to achieve just for them, even if they're never going to know about it, because that will drive you in ways that you're not going to be able to logically see right now. So the next time you need some motivation, the next time you're questioning whether or not it's worth it, the next time you're telling yourself, maybe I don't want to work this hard, think about the people who need to see what you're doing. Think about the people who you owe it to, and I promise you, you'll find the inspiration, you'll find the energy. Okay? So listen, I hope it's helpful. I see a couple comments on here. Hey, Sarah, that is one of the sweetest things you could say to me. A beacon of hope to hopelessness. I love it. I love it, Sarah. And guess what? You're one of my favorite, not one of my favorite, what am I talking about? You are my favorite poet ever in the history of the world. Janet, I see you, honey. I'm going to follow up and we're going to have another conversation. Let's see, what did you say here? That's why, I'm going to try not to cry on this. You were put on earth to do this. Sarah, you know what? I owe it to you now. I owe it to you to be successful. Man, that chokes me up, but you're right. I went through everything I went through for a reason, and it wasn't to be mediocre, and it wasn't to quit, and it wasn't to weaken. You're right, honey. Thank you so much. I'm going to sign off before I embarrass myself. Guys, I appreciate you jumping on here. I hope I offer value. I see your heart, Sarah. I mean what I say. Listen, if any of this resonates with any of you, if any of you out there are feeling stuck, like you can't move past something, you need some inspiration, you need some motivation, hit me up, DM me. I answer these things. There may be a sentence or two that I can tell you that may change your whole life. So don't hesitate. I hope you guys will take me up on that. I love all of you. We'll talk soon.